I told my husband's affair baby's family to either come get the kid or I'm calling CPS. I'm at work last Tuesday when my doorbell rings through the Ring app. I'm thinking it's a delivery or something normal. Instead, there's this random woman standing on my porch holding a toddler who looks exactly like my husband. Same weird cowlick, same tiny nose, same everything. The woman starts talking before I even open the door. Are you Jessica? I'm Monica. This is your husband's son, Tyler. I can't take care of him anymore. I'm standing there like, what the actual hell is happening right now? My husband Derek is supposed to be at his accounting job, but apparently he's been playing house with this chick for the past 3 years. Monica's holding this little kid who's maybe 2 years old, and she's got mascara running down her face. She tells me she's been raising Tyler alone because Derek promised he'd leave me, and they'd be a real family. Classic cheater move, right? Promise the side piece everything while keeping the wife in the dark. The kid is just standing there holding this ruddy stuffed elephant looking confused as hell. Monica goes, Derek told me if anything happened to take Tyler to his real family. Well, I'm moving to Arizona with my new boyfriend and Tyler can't come. I'm trying to process this bomb she just dropped when my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, comes out to water her flowers. She's obviously listening to every word. Great. Now the whole neighborhood's going to know my business by dinner time. Monica hands me this garbage bag full of the kids' clothes and toys. Derek's been sending me money every month, but now that's going to stop. You're his wife, so Tyler is your responsibility now. Then she just walks away, gets in her beat-up Honda, and drives off like she didn't just drop a whole human being on my doorstep. I'm standing there with this random toddler who's starting to cry. I call Eric immediately, and he doesn't answer. Typical. So? I text him. Your side bab is at my house. Come home now. He calls back in like 2 minutes, sounding all panicked. Turns out Derek's been lying to both of us. He told Monica he was divorced and told me he was working late every night. The money he was sending her, he'd been skimming from our joint savings account for months. I checked her bank app right there on my phone, and almost $5,000 was missing. Derek rushes home and acts like this is all some crazy misunderstanding. He's trying to explain how it just happened and Tyler wasn't planned. But here's the thing that really got me. This kid, Tyler, looks exactly like Derek did in his baby photos. His mom has those same photos on her fridge. This wasn't some accident. Derek's been living a double life. I told Derek he had until the end of the week to figure out what he wanted, me or them. But the thing is, I already knew his answer before he even opened his mouth. Derek has never chosen responsibility a single day in his life. Not with bills, not with chores, not with honesty. And definitely not with this kid he created behind my back. He just stood there stuttering, running his hand through his hair the way he always does when he's trying to lie faster. Then he can think, baby, it's not like that. I was confused. I didn't want to lose you. All the usual garbage. Meanwhile, Tyler is sitting on my couch eating goldfish crackers like he's lived here his whole life, completely oblivious to the nuclear war happening around him. I told Derek to stop talking unless he planned to say something useful. That's when he tried turning it on me. Jessica, don't make this harder. He's just a child. I swear I almost laughed. I was making it harder. He had been running around town making secret families like he was hosting a giveaway. And I was the one causing problems. I pointed to Tyler and said, you didn't think about him when you were sneaking around, Derek. Don't pretend to care now. Derek kept pacing, mumbling about needing time, needing space, needing understanding, whatever that meant. I finally snapped and said, you have until Friday. After that, Tyler goes back to whoever actually wants him. Because I'm not raising your affair baby while you play confused little accountant. That night, I set up a little corner for Tyler, just blankets, a stuffed toy, and some snacks. He wasn't the problem. He didn't ask to be born into Derek's lies. He didn't deserve the chaos. But I also wasn't going to let a 2-year-old be dumped on me like a lost Amazon package. By Wednesday, Derek still hadn't done anything. No calls to Monica. No calls to lawyers. No plan. Nothing. He just kept going to work like we weren't in a full-blown crisis. Thursday morning, Tyler's daycare, apparently Derek had enrolled him somewhere, secretly called me. Because Derek listed me as the emergency contact. They said, is Tyler okay? We heard he might be living with you now. I almost threw my phone across the room. That was the moment I realized Derek had been planning this. He'd slowly been shifting responsibilities onto me, listing me as emergency contact, sending mail to our house with Tyler's name, even saving photos of the kid on his work phone. He wasn't confused. He was preparing to dump his double-life mess on me because he knew I'm the one who always holds everything together. Not this time. By Friday afternoon, Derek still hadn't figured out anything. He tried to tell me he needed just 1 more week. I said, No. You had 2 years to figure out your lies. I gave you until today. So I did exactly what I warned him I would. I tracked down Monica's sister on Facebook Messenger. Turns out she had already blocked Monica everywhere because Monica left Tyler with her for 3 days last year and never came back. She told me straight up, she'll do anything to avoid responsibility. If she dropped him on you, she doesn't want him. Then I called Monica's mother. She answered, heard the situation, sighed and said, I knew this was coming. She sounded tired. Like this wasn't new behavior. I gave her the address and said, if someone doesn't come get Tyler by tonight, I'm calling CPS. I'm not legally responsible for him. And I'm not letting him get stuck here because two responsible adults can't act like parents. She said she'd send her son Tyler's uncle. 30 minutes later, a man in his early 30s showed up, polite, calm and extremely apologetic. He picked up Tyler like he'd done it 100 times and said, thank you for not abandoning him. We'll take care of him. Derek came home right as they were leaving and started screaming at me like I'd given away a puppy he found. I told him if you cared so much, you would have handled it. I told you exactly what would happen. He yelled that I had no right to involve CPS or his son's family. I yelled back, you had no right to create a whole child without telling your wife. He went silent, completely silent, because he finally realized this wasn't about Tyler, this was about him losing control. That night, Derek packed a bag and left to think. I told him not to bother rushing back, because I already made an appointment with a divorce lawyer. Story 2, I walked into the investment firm where my son-in-law worked, and he laughed. Security, escort this gentleman out. He wandered in from the wrong building. His colleagues gathered to watch my $20,000 humiliation. But then his managing partner appeared and said, Mr. Harrison, your $15 million portfolio transfer is approved. And you clear out your desk. Chapter 1, the dinner that changed everything. The November rain came down in silver threads, streaking across the windshield of my Subaru as I turned into the curved driveway of my daughter's house. Oakville looked like a postcard of wealth. Manicured lawns, imported stone driveways, and porch lights designed to impress more than welcome. Through the window, I saw my grandchildren, Jacob 8 and Emma 10, wave at me with excitement. Only children still remember how to feel. Jacob's jacket was too thin for November. Emma's sneakers looked worn through at the toes. I noticed things. Always have. The front door opened before I reached it. Thomas stood there in a navy suit, tie loosened but present sharp. The kind of man who'd rather command a room than live in it. Robert, he said, forcing a smile. You're early. Traffic must have been light. It was fine, I replied. My tone was even, polite enough to hide the temperature beneath it. The house smelled of rosemary, chicken and something sharper, probably imported candles. The kind that cost more because someone decided scent should sound foreign. Rebecca hurried in from the kitchen, her apron still on. Dad, she hugged me quickly, like someone hugging under supervision. Dinner's almost ready. Thomas gestured toward the dining room. Please have a seat. The table was set for 5. He took the head chair without asking, poured himself a glass of Cabernet, and didn't offer anyone else a drop. The children sat quiet, too quiet for their age. The kind of quiet that comes from learning peace means silence. So, Robert, Thomas said, cutting into his steak. How's retirement? Must be strange going from managing a lumber mill to, well, nothing. I smiled faintly. It's peaceful. He chuckled. Peace is nice when you can afford it. He looked at my flannel shirt and old wristwatch the way some men study expired coupons. Still driving that Subaru. You should let me help you pick something newer. Image matters. Image, I said softly, isn't everything. He grinned. The grin of a man who thinks he's won an argument that never existed when Jacob mentioned his hockey team's fees. Thomas didn't miss a beat. Grandpa's not Santa, buddy. We budget in this family. I nodded slowly, watching Rebecca refill his glass before it emptied. She learned his rhythm. That worried me. After dinner, I visited the kids' rooms. The paint was fading. Emma's drawer handle was taped. Jacob's winter boots were separating at the seams, but the master bedroom door stood ajar, and I could see the $1,200 price tag still hanging from the new duvet. By the time I left, I already knew the truth I didn't want to admit. My daughter wasn't living with a husband. She was surviving a man who thought status was love. I drove home through wet streets that shimmered like dark glass. My apartment, a small one-bedroom place overlooking Lake Ontario, welcomed me with the kind of silence that doesn't judge. I hung my jacket, brewed a cup of tea, and opened my laptop. The number on my banking app glowed quietly. $28 million. 18 months ago, I'd sold Harrison Timber and Milling, the company I built from sawdust and sleepless nights. Only Rebecca knew I retired. No one knew the price. Above my desk hung an old photograph, my father and me standing outside our first mill. His hand rested on my shoulder. He used to say, "Never correct a man who underestimates you. Just keep your receipts." That night, I created a new document. Family Observations, November 2025, Children's Clothing Condition, Thomas's Spending Patterns, Rebecca's Stress Indicators. I leaned back and watched the rain trail down the glass. Thomas thought I was an old man with a flannel shirt and no legacy left. He was wrong. Some lessons you can't teach with words. They require a demonstration. Chapter 2, The Pattern Beneath the Polish. 3 days later, I sat across from a man named Dennis Kowalski in a quiet Masaga cafe. He looked like he'd been carved out of old stone. Gray hair, steady hands, eyes that saw through excuses. He was an investigator, the kind who didn't advertise. "You said this was family-related," he said. I nodded. "My son-in-law, Thomas Patterson. Something's off, spending habits, attitude. The way he treats my daughter and grandkids." "I want facts, not feelings." Dennis flipped open a worn notebook. "How far do you want me to go?" "As far as the truth goes." He wrote a few notes, then quoted his rate and timeline. I slid an envelope across the table, half in advance, the rest on completion. Discretion matters. I added, "You'll have it," he said simply. For 10 days, I lived in silence. Mornings began with coffee and ended with uncertainty. Every time my phone buzzed, I hoped for clarity. Finally, on the 11th morning, Dennis called. "Mr. Harrison," he said, "we should meet." When he arrived, he carried a single folder. No dramatics, just evidence. He laid it on the table. Inside were photographs, time-stamped, high-resolution truths. Thomas at a restaurant called Canoe, his hand on a woman's back. Another at the Four Seasons, laughing with the same woman. And then hotel check-ins, late nights, early mornings. Dennis didn't sugarcoat it. Her name's Melissa Patterson, junior analyst at his firm. 6 months, maybe longer. There's more. He handed me another packet. Loan statements, credit card summaries, personal debts. He's borrowed close to $80,000 in the past year, Dennis said, all in his own name. Your daughter's not listed anywhere. Combined household debt is around $420,000. He's juggling two lifestyles. Yours is funding one, and she doesn't know. I closed the folder slowly. So, he's drowning himself to look like a king. Dennis nodded. That's the pattern. That night, I cleared my desk and spread everything out. Photographs, balances, statements, printed timelines, every line pointed to the same truth. Thomas's empire was built on lies and loans. But rage doesn't build justice. Planning does. I opened my laptop and began researching Thornhill Capital Management, his firm. Within an hour, I knew everything that mattered. Their hierarchy, client thresholds, and one small detail. Thornhill himself handled only clients with portfolios exceeding $10 million. An idea took root. Quiet, surgical, perfect. If Thomas wanted to play at being a man of wealth and influence, I'd give him a masterclass in what real power looked like. I created a new email address, richard.morris@outlook.com. Drafted a message with deliberate restraint, subject, private portfolio inquiry, confidential transfer. Dear Mr. Thornhill, I'm seeking a discreet high-level investment partnership for a private transfer exceeding $15 million. I value confidentiality and prefer to speak only with senior management. Please advise availability. Regards, Richard Morrison. I reread it twice, trimming every hint of emotion until it sounded like money talking to money. Then I saved it as a draft. Timing matters in business. Send too early and you seem desperate. Too late and the window closes. I waited until morning light spilled across my desk before hitting send. As the message disappeared from the screen, I smiled faintly. Thomas Patterson thought he buried me under the weight of his arrogance. What he didn't know was that I just set the first domino in motion. Chapter 3, The Meeting at Thornhill Capital. The next afternoon, an email arrived from Gregory Thornhill. Subject Ray Private Portfolio Inquiry. Confidential transfer. Morrison, we'd be delighted to discuss your portfolio. I'll personally handle your case. My office will prepare a discreet consultation tomorrow at 2 p.m. Please bring valid identification and relevant documentation. G. Thornhill. So he'd taken the bait. At 1:15 the next day, I parked my Subaru in a public garage 2 blocks from Thornhill Capital's glass tower. In downtown Toronto, the streets were slick from rain, reflecting the city like a mirror. Every detail mattered. Where I parked, how I walked, what I wore. I had chosen a charcoal blazer, crisp shirt, dark jeans, not flashy, credible. Wealth whispers. It doesn't shout. Inside the building, everything gleamed. The kind of place designed to smell like money and fear. The receptionist greeted me with the polite tone reserved for people who might be important. Mr. Morrison, Mr. Thornhill is expecting you. She led me to a private elevator. When the doors opened on the 23rd floor, the view stole even my breath. the whole city stretching like a map of ambition. Gregory Thornhill stood by his desk. Mid-50s, silver hair, eyes sharp with curiosity. His handshake was the kind of firm that measures men. "Mr. Morrison," he said, "thank you for coming in. Thank you for your time," I replied. We spoke for 30 minutes about investments, liquidity, long-term goals. He was good, smooth, confident, respectful. He saw the portfolio as numbers, not legacy. Perfect. When he paused, I leaned forward and slid a sealed envelope across his desk. "This," I said, "is a $2 million certified bank draft. A preliminary transfer." Thornhill raised his eyebrows slightly. It was the first real reaction I'd seen. "I intend to move an additional $13 million within 30 days. But there are conditions." He folded his hands. "I'm listening." "First," I said, "this remains confidential until the full transfer is complete. No staff access, no leaks." He hesitated only a moment before nodding. "Discretion is standard at our level." "Second," I added, "when I complete the final transfer, I'll do so unannounced during regular business hours. I want to experience your firm as any other client might." Thornhill's eyes flickered with curiosity. "That's unconventional. Call it a test," I said. He studied me for a long second, then smiled faintly. "You're not a man who wastes words, are you, Mr. Morrison? I've learned silence is a better investment than speeches." He laughed softly. "We'll make arrangements." As I rose to leave, I turned slightly toward the glass wall that overlooked the main office. And there he was, Thomas Patterson, my son-in-law, standing with two junior analysts, laughing too loudly. He gestured toward the window, oblivious to me. Thornhill noticed. "You recognize someone by marriage," I said mildly. "Thomas Patterson." He frowned, thoughtful. "He's one of our advisors." "Solid numbers, bit brash, I imagine so," I replied. "He doesn't know I'm here." "Let's keep it that way. I prefer to surprise him." Thornhill's expression shifted as though the pieces were beginning to align. "Understood." When I returned to my car, I didn't start the engine right away. The rain had eased to a whisper against the windshield. I thought about how far this had gone, how deep the deception ran, how quietly I'd learned to play his game. Thomas thought I was a man in decline. But the truth was, I'd been building momentum. He believed I had nothing left to lose. But I'd spent a lifetime learning when to strike and when to let arrogance do the work for me. I looked up at Thornhill Capital's glass tower one last time. In for weeks, that glass would shatter. Not with noise, with revelation. Chapter 4, the day the glass cracked. For weeks passed like a slow drumbeat. Every morning, I checked the markets. Every night, I rehearsed what I'd say if Thomas looked me in the eye. I didn't plan to raise my voice or make a scene. No, real power doesn't roar. It arrives. When Thornhill's assistant called to confirm the final paperwork, my pulse barely moved. Everything was ready. The full $15 million transfer cleared and verified. Thursday morning, I dressed the part Thomas expected. Old work jacket, faded jeans, boots I'd worn since the mill days. The image of a man past his prime. The kind of man people overlook. When I pulled into the firm's underground parking, I didn't hide my Subaru this time. I parked right beside Thomas's new Mercedes. Its black paint gleaming like an apology waiting to happen. Inside, Thornhill's receptionist greeted me with the same polished tone. "Mr. Morrison, right on time." The elevator carried me up through mirrored walls. Each reflection reminded me of the years Thomas had mistaken silence for weakness. When the doors opened, the 23rd floor office was alive with chatter and glass reflections. I walked past the open workspace, heading for Thornhill's corner suite. That's when Thomas saw me. He froze mid-conversation with two clients, confusion tightening his smile. "Robert," he said across the room, incredulous. "What are you doing here?" I didn't answer. I walked past him and into the conference room beside Thornhill's office. The glass walls made sure everyone could see inside. Thornhill stood, extending his hand. "Mr. Morrison, welcome back. Let's finalize everything." He spread the paperwork across the table. "Need stacks of contracts, forms, transfer confirmations. This represents your full $15 million portfolio," he said clearly. Perhaps a little louder than usual. "We've completed the preliminary allocation and designated you as a platinum tier client. With direct access to senior partnership reviews." The entire floor had gone quiet. Thomas took a step closer, color draining from his face. "Wait. What?" Thornhill didn't flinch. "Your father-in-law has just finalized one of the largest private transfers we've seen this quarter." The room's air shifted, curiosity turning into shock. Thomas stammered. "That's impossible. He can't have that kind of money. He lives in." I looked up calmly. "A one-bedroom apartment. Drives a Subaru, yes. None of those are indicators of poverty, Thomas. Just of priorities," he gaped, searching for footing. "You worked at a lumber mill your whole life." "I own the mill," I said quietly. 42 years. Sold it for $31 million. A murmur spread through the office like wind through dry leaves. Thornhill turned toward Thomas, his tone cooling. Mr. Patterson. You're interrupting a confidential client session. Thomas's voice cracked. This is a mistake. He's my father-in-law. Then you should have treated him with respect, Thornhill said evenly. I signed the last page, set down the pen, and met Thomas's eyes. You told me I was outdated. I said you wanted fresh blood. Well, here it is, and had just bought your firm. Thornhill nodded toward the door. Mr. Patterson, my office now. Thomas hesitated, staring at me as realization dawned. This wasn't about money. It was about truth. I gathered my folder, thanked Thornhill, and walked toward the elevator. Behind me, Thornhill's voice carried through the glass, effective immediately. Your employment is terminated. HR will contact you for the final settlement. The elevator doors closed just as Thomas's composure broke, his reflection vanishing behind steel. Outside, the city air smelled clean after rain. I looked up at the tower, all that glass, all those reflections. For years, Thomas thought power was about titles and suits. He forgot the first rule of business. Never humiliate the man who taught you what work means. He fired me from his life the day he mistook arrogance for success. Today, I return the favor, not out of vengeance, but out of balance. Final chapter, the lesson and the legacy. That evening, I didn't celebrate. There were no champagne corks, no victory music. Just the sound of rain against my window, and the soft hum of the city. As if the world itself had exhaled, Thomas was finished at Thornhill Capital. Word spread quickly, as it always does in the financial world, but I didn't take pleasure in it. I'd seen enough men destroy themselves chasing an image of success. He just happened to do it in front of an audience. Now came the part that mattered. My daughter and grandchildren. When I knocked on Rebecca's door that night, she opened it wearing confusion and exhaustion. Dad, what are you doing here? It's late. I needed to show you something, I said. She hesitated, then stepped aside. Inside, the house felt hollow, expensive, but tired. I placed my leather folder on the table and opened it, one by one. I spread the photographs across the polished wood. Rebecca's breath caught. Each photo was time-stamped. Thomas with a woman in a blue dress. Thomas at a hotel valet stand. Thomas laughing over wine he couldn't afford. She stared at the images, eyes glassy. Who is she? Her name's Melissa Patterson, I said softly. Junior analyst at Thornhill Capital, 6 months at least. He's been living on loans. For lenders, max cards, hidden accounts. You and the kids are drowning. And he's buying her champagne. Rebecca sank into a chair. I know, I said. But it's time to stop pretending. She looked up, trembling. You knew. All this time, you knew, I suspected. Then I confirmed. Her eyes hardened. So what did you do? I told her. The portfolio, the meeting, the confrontation. Every quiet detail of the plan. When I finished, silence filled the kitchen. You humiliated him, she whispered. He humiliated you, I replied. Every day you believed you weren't enough, that the children's needs came second to his image. I didn't destroy him, Rebecca. He built his own gallows. I just turned on the lights. The front door opened suddenly. Thomas stood there, jacket soaked, face pale, eyes frantic. You? He snarled. You ruined me. I stayed seated. No, Thomas. You did that all on your own. He turned to Rebecca. Desperate. You believe him? He's manipulating you. He wants to control you. Rebecca's voice was steady, quiet, but unshakable. Get out. He blinked. What? Get out. For a moment, he looked like a man standing on the edge of a cliff. Then his pride won the argument. He stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Weeks later, I sat beside Rebecca in a family courtroom as a judge finalized the divorce. Primary custody to her, child support assigned. The marital home awarded in her name. When the gavel fell, she didn't cry. She just exhaled like a woman reclaiming oxygen. Outside, she turned to me. You were right, all of it. No. I said you were brave enough to see it. She smiled faintly. Maybe I get that from you. Months passed, the children thrived again. Rebecca found a job in environmental consulting, something she dreamed of before she met Thomas. Her laughter filled the house now. Even the walls felt lighter. I visited often, but I didn't interfere. My job was done. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the lake, she sat across from me at the table. Dad, she said, do you ever regret what you did? The way you exposed him. I looked at her, the strength in her eyes, the steadiness in her voice. Sometimes, I admitted. But regret fades. The lesson stays. What lesson? That silence isn't weakness. And that respect once lost costs more than money can ever buy. Later that night at home, I opened a folder labeled Education Trust. Jacob and Emma, two accounts funded quietly, waiting for the day they'd need them because revenge fades, too. But protection, that's legacy. I stared out the window at the city skyline, all glass, all illusion, and smiled faintly. Thomas had spent years chasing wealth he could show off. I built mine on values he could never understand. And when the time came to prove the difference, I didn't raise my voice. I just let the truth speak for itself. Epilogue: the weight of quiet justice. They say revenge is best served cold, but I've learned something else. The cold isn't the point, it's the silence. The moment when those who mocked you finally hear the echo of their own arrogance. And in that silence, justice doesn't need applause. It just needs truth. Was this justice or revenge? You decide. Comment what you'd have done if you were in my place.